to guide. And may everything that we are going to share this afternoon be a blessing to those who are listening. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Murutu.
All right. This afternoon, we'll spend just a few moments talking about the different types of fathers. Different types of fathers. You know, Kulawama, I thought that there was just basically one type of father, just a father, biological guy who is your father, and that's it. But with the passing of time, as we grow up and realize what's going on in Bomin, we discover that there are different types of fathers. And I think all over the world, we have come to acknowledge ndoba akamnyanga utata ukhoyo indidi zotata ziliqela. The first type is the biological resident father. I think the label kind of explains lo biological ngulukhoyo ngulungutatako ngokwenyama. And on top of that, nihlala kunye. That's where the residential thing goes. The biological resident father, nihlala kunye, and ngutatako biologically. That's the first type. Now, there are different types of these biological resident fathers. Eyokuqala, ngutato involved. Ukhona utatako biologically, and we involved in your life, we involved in different ways. When you look at the Children's Act of South Africa, ziliqela izinto ezi-envisagwayo with a relationship yomntana and notatakhe. There is the issue of care yomntana. You must be there probably to care for the child. There's the issue of guardianship, and there's the issue of maintenance, at the very least, amongst others. So you find that lono khona present. So is able to care for umntana, is able to be there on a day-to-day basis. Or is able to be a guardian in the sense that you are uthatha decisions. As trip function as a guardian that oversees to make sure it decisions as no one's right. And thirdly is the person who is there who to an extent may be able to maintain financially the life of the child. So that's the first type of a biological resident father. Type Ps is a resident father who's just not involved. Of months we in the sense of financial maintenance. So that he's there, he does the maintenance that, but beyond that, they go involved in those life involved with discipline. It does not went on the guardianship decisions. If you have to do something, go to your mother. Get involved. Sometimes, as much as a shala up, you hardly ever get to see him. Solo is chomin or wherever the case may be. So I'll move on but because the address and that's the second type. The third type is a biological resident father. You find that you in fact relief tense up in people don't want to mess up or whatever the case may be. So kukole type biological father and but to a very large degree yamoyika, that's another type. These are the types everything changes because you know things could explode at any stage. And there's a type of a biological resident father of but law is a pleasure to have around. There's a father who's here, who's involved in your lives. Of course, will make the tough decisions, the tough calls from time to time. But generally, it's a pleasure to be around. It's the father that you play with. It's the father that we take walks with. We do watch movies with. These are the ones we are comfortable. You can relax in his presence because you don't fear him. You can talk. He knows he knows what's going on in your life. That's a type of resident father. Now, generally, we of a resident father, we can assume biological. Automatically the father is involved. Automatically the father is a pleasure to be around. Now, some of us may be biological resident fathers. And at this stage, I would like to simply say, just evaluate what type you are. Are you just involved in the child's life? Are you not involved, but probably financing ubomi lomntana? Are you the biological father that is feared? Ngabantwana, or are you a pleasure to the kids to have around? Being a pleasure to be around, siyibona kwimbuso zabantwana, siyibona kwi-reactions zabo when you're around. And I would say to you, decide what kind of father you want to be. It's never really too late. For as long as abantwana besesendlini, it's never too late to make a change and decide what kind of father you want to be. Now, sometimes what throws us off is that, Tina, we may not have had the example of this biological resident father who's a pleasure to have around. Sometimes you may not have had the example. Sometimes yenzeka into yoba wena owakho utata who was a biological and resident father, he was a feared type, okanye involved at all, and as a result you may not know how else to be a father ngoba nansi model onayo okhule uyibona. And so if that is the case, you may probably be thinking that being this father who's biological and resident is enough. You don't have to be involved, and you may feel that way. But I would say sit and look back and say, what kind of father do you wish you had? And try the best to say, let me see if I can't be that kind of father to my kids, so that they could have the benefit of something that I never had. A biological resident father. The second type is a biological non-resident father. A biological non-resident is the father who either because they were never married to begin with, or they were married and they got divorced, or they were married and there was a death of a mother, but that usually means probably by somebody else. So to a large degree, a non-resident father, it's either they were never married or the parents are divorced. Now, these biological non-resident fathers, to a very large degree, in South Africa right now, do not have a biological resident father. They don't. That's the reality of South Africa in today's world. Now you have different types of these fathers. You have those resident fathers who are involved in the life of abantwana. They check up, involved into decisions at school. They check up on the child. They may be having some form of visitation program, and so that there is some form of involvement. It may not include finance, but there's some involvement. The second type of this non-resident, biological non-resident father is a father who is somewhat involved. Or somewhat involved varies, is a very wide range. Somewhat involved ranges from once or twice mdibano with the child, but to a very large degree, heavily involved on the finances. But sometimes you find that are involved as non-resident biological fathers on the day-to-day life of the child, but you find that the father is involved with issues of finance. In other words, they're financing schools and so on and so forth. So somewhat involvement. Sometimes it could be on a holiday, it could be in a particular weekend. So in their life, you can't quite completely discount them, even though they may not live together. But is involved in some way in the life of the child. It's not the ideal that the father may want, not the ideal that the child may want, but it's involved some form of involvement. The third category is when the relationship is a work in progress. Work in progress simply means that for some reason the relationship may be strained. Sometimes the relationship is strained, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about absent fathers. Sometimes the relationship gets strained because of a strained relationship with a mother. There is sometimes a belief, and the belief is not correct. Just because somebody made a horrible boyfriend, they'll automatically make a horrible father. Okanye, you were a bad husband, therefore you'll automatically make a bad father. And so I'm protecting my child from this person, Goba. means it's not necessarily the case. I mean, we know people who can be kind to you and be horrible to your friend. We know that. We know people who can be kind to you and horrible to your sibling. So it's not automatic that somebody who's not a great boyfriend to you will automatically be a horrible father to the child, or who was not a great husband to you will automatically be a horrible father to the child. But you find that sometimes the relationship, because we break down your relationship between mama and dad, either because they never got married or they got divorced, that the relationship is strained, and somehow there is a way in which the relationship is being rebuilt. Sometimes it's because the father was just absent. He kind of disappeared from the picture, or he's trying to reinsert himself back into the picture, and there's a relationship that's kind of being worked on. So this relationship is not there. It's work in progress. They are both trying to find their feet in a relationship, and it's a tentative thing, basically. The other type of this non-resident biological father is that sometimes the relationship can just be great. I mean, they get on like a house on fire. They really get along. They have a great relationship. And sometimes this happens as the children get a little older, and they're able to probably even have their own phones, and you are able to kind of work out a program and a schedule going. And it usually requires, this kind of relationship requires that the mother of the child, whether divorce, requires that the attitude of the mother be an attitude that seeks to foster the relationship. Because if the attitude is negative, there'll always be some cold water being poured, so it's not going to work. So the relationship usually works. This great relationship with a non-resident biological father will work because there is an attitude of the mother there that is not prohibitive, that allows the relationship to thrive. Relationship, it doesn't really work. And it's true that sometimes people feel the mother sometimes feel, but if they facilitate this great relationship between umndana and Tata, it's as if they are rewarding the man for all the bad things he did to her. And so because she doesn't want anything to do nalomfo, she feels, and this bend is, and I'm not going to be trying to put forward a picture in Doba. It seems as if he's such a great man. He's not a great dad. He was a horrible husband, or he was a horrible boyfriend. Now, this is the downside of that. The downside of feeling good to you want to put that picture to the side is, Lomdana, as much as wohlukana wena mamumdana no tatak, Lomdana zanga hluka no tatak. This will always be his or her father. Now, the things you say about the father to the child, to an extent, reflect on the child. And so whatever we do or say to attack the other biological parent hits the child in a way that is very, very difficult to repair, because you are hitting at the child's identity. You're making the child to develop a relationship that is unnatural. A negative relationship with your parent or biological parent is an unnatural thing. But to cultivate that creates a wound that may be very, yes, but
Manbuze nje man, uba mhlambi umuntu une question anayo as you are speaking, can a person intercept?
Yes.
Okay. Nivile ke bahlali.
I'm worried because of time, Fundisi, if we should be doing that. Sorry for Ungapagamisi.
Okay.
It's fine with me either way. Let me put it that way. I am not necessarily fazed by it, but because sometimes, okay, let me indicate this. For me personally, it would work out better if the little that if it allows us to go through 50% of the presentation, and people are able to deal with, because these are different types of fathers, are able to deal with a particular type as we go along. It's fine then to cover the whole thing and be left with probably confused or something like that. So for me, I'm easy, and unless there's a major problem with it, but I'm easy. We can do it that way as we go along. Sometimes you go to by the time you finish presentation, so amen, we'll leave an alambu's now. But okay, yes. All right, back to this. So when you try to say, I'm going to, you're going to cultivate the relationship between umama nomntana, between umntana with a biological parent, which is negative, man, that's a wound that's going to be very difficult to heal. It is. It's going to create an anger in the child that you will not be able to extricate later on. Because umntana wants to feel loved. Umntana wants to feel that umzali wakho uyamthanda and chose them. And when we say things to our children that suggest noba umzali wakho akamfuni, umzali wakho akamkhathalelanga, umzali wakho akamthandi, it may be what you see, it may be how you feel. But what it says, Kulomdana, is that it creates a question that lasts for a lifetime. Why did my father love me? Why did he choose not to be there? And that's a question as you pendla wena now you can say, but it's true. From where I can say, I can argue that it is true. And so I decided to tell my child because I wanted my child to tell the truth, to know the truth. If that was the case, but if there was value in unnecessary hateful truths, that God would have exposed to us, but He has not. So I would say, no matter how you feel about the other parent, it hurts and messes up your child that you love when somehow the things we say or do create or result in a negative relationship between umntana and biological father, which in this case may be a father. So these great relationships between umntana and their biological non-resident father, these relationships, they are able to be great because of the attitude of the mother. So it will take a mother's attitude to foster the relationship. If the attitude of the mother is not there, it's not going to happen. You can try as much as you can, it won't. Now, go involved, work in progress. Then you have resident social fathers. Now you may wonder, what is a social father? A social father, in most schools, we're exposed to social fathers. My father died when I was very young. And so I had a lot of social fathers. The social fathers can go malum, kotatomkhulu. These are stepfathers. Ngabantu aba who are not your biological fathers, but who step into the space and play the role of a biological father. These are the people sometimes your mother got divorced, your one of the parents died and you had to be raised by your grandparents, whatever the setup may be, and you find that this uncle or this grandparent role who provides the structure, provides the guidance, who becomes the guardian, who signs for your things. He is the one who gives you some form of structure, and all of the stuff. He's the one you kind of want to impress in life. And sometimes it's a stepfather who brings the structure and order in your life. And so these are social fathers. And these social fathers can range in different categories. And sometimes now it may not even be because of the father. Sometimes because of the relationship between the father and the child. Sometimes it is because of the previous relationship, or sometimes it's because of preconceived ideas. Stepfather, obvious. Sometimes is just too strict. And with too strict, interesting thing that too strict is that sometimes with too strict, for the person being strict can come across as being strict. But we are a biological child. More often than not, strict comes across as cruel. That's something that unfortunately we can't walk away from. It comes across as cruel. As much as for this one, it may be saying strict for your own good. That's how it is experienced. So you have an option of being feared, as whatever, or the option of being loved. Now, the interesting thing about social fathers is that they generally tend, especially if it's a grandfather, they generally tend to be gentler. Element yoba strict, but they tend to be gentle because they're dealing with you and nomntana wabo okanye nodad wabo who is the actual biological parent. And so they tend to be gentle, more guiding, more patient. Sometimes they've had abantwana babo already, but bamenza trial and error wabo. So one of the reasons grandparents make great social fathers, or tatomkhulu make great social fathers, is because la element of wanting to be strict that they did with your father. Neza error, trial and error bamenza umzali wako. By the time they get to you, they're not as uptight, they're not as stressed, they're more relaxed, they're more confident in what they are doing, and they are more prone to explain. They are less prone to act in anger and all of that. They've done it before. They've seen it doesn't work. They've seen certain things that work. They are open to trying as new. So you can have, some of us are raised by these social fathers, in the sense that uhlala kwamalume, uhlala notatomkhulu, or you're living with a stepfather, and that's it. It's a biology. It's a resident person. Now, if you are a resident social father, I would say irolo idlalayo is huge and significant. And sometimes when you're just being an uncle, or when you're just being a grandparent, but what you are doing is providing a father figure in the child's life. What you are doing, you provide umzekelo oba unjani uba ngutata, and you'll most likely be role model yalomdana in terms of how he is going to be a father, in terms of what she's going to expect from a father. And so from a husband, naye awuba ekhulile ngumntana by picture, and sometimes the things we do may seem insignificant, but they are very, very significant. Ngoba lo mntana utata amjongileyo nguwe lukhoyo. So usenongayihoyi sometimes ukukoma wethu ngumntana utata wethu lo, so it's not an issue. Okanye mtshana lona, so it's not a big deal for me. It is. If you are the resident social father, it is a big deal. It's a very big deal. Sometimes you have non-resident social fathers. This is when Mamako probably lives on her own. And as she lives on her own, she unikhulise phayeto. But in her life, kukhona malume, kukhona tatomkhulu. People who come back from ezithile. Umuntu ufuna sibafundisa uflate ngutatomkhulu. Umali wamthatha ngeholiday wamsenda endaweni ethile wamsendisa. So you find that there are uncles who step in from time to time. Omalume bethu, they were never resident. In other words, zanga bahlala nathi omalume. But omalume would come and visit nathi, we would go and visit them. And the moments we spent together with them kind of molded the sense of what fathers are like. The idea of what a father is a man, I picked that up from my uncles, because they were very carefree and they were big, tall guys, but who you could have fun with. Ubukho basically meant laughter. Their presence represented fun and joy and happiness. And so that becomes a picture that I grow up with of a father. When there's a man around the house, there must be some form of, laughter and joy and fun and so on. But so that's a role you can play as a non-resident social father. You can play that role as an uncle. Now you play this role, and you'll find that many times umntana okhula without a resident man in their life, but you end up creating a composite social father. By this I mean uthatha into ethile kulo, uthatha into ethile kulo, uthatha into ethile kulo, uthatha into ethile kulo, and you're building something in your mind. You build something in your mind of what you want. As a result, growing up, I picked a few things from a certain uncle. I picked a few other things from another uncle. So you pick those things up and they become what you want to be. And you try and move towards this picture, this ideal that you have in your mind. And so it's a good thing if you're involved in the life of a child ongenatata in their house, in the resident, and you are ngumalume, ngumzala kamama, umzala katata, or brother kamama, or brother katata, ngutatomkhulu, whatever the case may be, you are a friend of the family. Remember that as you interact with these young children, you are part of the social fathers. And as you interact with them, do so with grace and gentleness. Do so with purpose. Give counsel, give advice. Why? Because it'll come in handy for Lomdan. Many people are significant ebomini bethu. Many people have played a significant role ebomini bethu njani, simply because they contributed in a bit. they contributed, their time they spent with us, something rubbed off. Zikhona ke social fathers as a non-resident which are just indifferent. Indifferent in the sense intoba ayingomntanakhe ngumtshana yena uze echomini yakhe, which is who's your mother or your father. And so akayihoyi intoba they may be a part, they may be one of the social fathers in the space. And so they don't really care how they speak in your presence or how they, whatever the case may be. They are hoping probably to be more careful, but they're not really indifferent towards this. And sometimes back on the social fathers where you find that they're just, well, that's my mom's friend, malume. Sense and you're not my father, you can't tell me what to do, kind of thing. They're just indifferent. And of course, the attitude towards umntana, it generally disadvantages them because they miss out on an opportunity of drawing from the positives from the different social fathers as and they're social fathers that are loved, favorite uncles, who is favorite, tato favorite, or favorite, or favorite, you'll find that there must be someone, a friend of the family, who is a favorite social father. And when that happens, Lomtu is able to have tremendous influence in the life yomntana, because kululu kopi into kumntu omthandayo, kululu kopi into kumntu that you look up to. And so I would say some of the greatest impacts we are going to have on the children's lives is because we just get along with them. We are the people who don't come hard on them even when they mess up. Let other people do that. Yours is probably to come in as just advice, and the child feels they can confide. Then you can have a great impact on the child. Kwabanye, you'll just be a role model in the sense that when they'll come and visit you in your home, the 2 hours they spend there makes them feel, I want to have a home like that. I want to have a relationship like that with my wife. I want to have a home like this. We can have an impact because the fact that I go biologically does not mean that we do not have a fatherly impact on their lives. Then we have absent fathers. Absent fathers come in different stripes. They come in different ways. We have absent fathers who are not aware that they are fathers. Not aware. Umama fell pregnant, decided and for whatever reason. And so the man does not even know Bunomdan. And I've known people about who are in their 20s. And and that's it. So some absent fathers are absent because the mother never told them, for whatever reason, never told them. Sometimes because why chatty and the woman thought, okay, fine, I don't want to complicate my life. Whatever the case may be, some absent fathers are absent because they don't know that they are fathers. The absent fathers are absent because they don't know how to be fathers. They've never seen a father operate in their lives. The picture that they have of a father is a picture they don't like, and they would not want to be that. They just don't know. They honestly don't. And so they just disappear. They garnish or stop order, whatever, support, and they'll pay that, and they disappear. They just don't know how to be a father. And yet the fathers are people. Sometimes your mntana is about 2 or 3 streets away from the father, same area. But because to a very large degree, we've told fathers men from if you are not able to provide, you are not a man. And as a result, so the first thing they think of when they see you as a man, as a father. And so it's as if you do not have money, you can't father. Now, all of those questions come up because primarily, and I understand the frustration. I understand the frustration of the person. I understand that frustration. But unfortunately, as that frustration, this one is getting a sense of and the person who gets to miss out in the process, who loses having a father, in his life, provide. There is more to being and providing. Designed the role of a father, he created a man and designed the role of a husband and designed the role of a father. There were no expenses to pay for. And yet in that space, there was a father and a role for a father. When we get to Ebukumkanim, we will spend eternity in the kingdom. We will spend eternity there with children, and we will still continue to be their fathers, for eternity, even though we will not be able to be providing for them. So the important part from their parent, mother or father. However, the inability to provide financial does not nullify your role as a father altogether. Absent fathers because and you'll find that the interesting thing, the day he has some money, he will rock up with whatever he has, and because we provide, he will come expecting what he's bringing today is going to wipe away the many absence. And when this one is upset, but you were absent, this one does not understand, but I could not come. So we have to kind of socialize our boys, our fathers, to understand that's more to fatherhood than imali. So some are absent because of mali and bayazwi uba ayizulunga. Abanye abantu absent fathers because abavani nonina babantwana. And nonina babantwana have tried everything to cut off contact between the father and the child. They do all kinds of things. They hide the child. They block access. There's a lot of drama. Sometimes once protection order. There are all kinds of things. Sometimes the law is used to keep you away from your child. So is attitude yake such that in fact and it's so deep. The hatred is so deep and so entrenched that the conflict with mother makes it impossible for you to have any form of relationship with because whatever she tells them, see traces of it, from the facial expression to the tone of voice to everything. Remember, whoa, it can't work. So some are absent because it's a consequence with the mother. They are absent fathers because and this usually happens in cases abantwana abavele ngosetshatile. A man has been married for 10 years and he's got a 5-year-old child. Chances are that why? Because how do you explain to your wife, baby, I know we've been married for 10 years, I've got a 5-year-old. That creates other problems. When you're gonna have serious problems if you're gonna come and start talking stories and over you've been married for 10 years. So you'll find that the wife does not know you even exist. Sometimes knows that you exist, the wife is not on board because sometimes it feels as if, and understandably so, it feels as if accept and be part of providing a father figure in the child's life. It's as if the mother is somewhat embracing, condoning, or minimizing between and umama njengomntana. And so some men are absent because the wife does not know, or the wife knows and not on board, and they do not want to destroy the family that they have because they understand that if they somehow persist, they might end up losing that family. The category of absent fathers who are just irresponsible. Unemali, financial means angaba involved, he is not. The time is being provided. Come and spend time with umntana for a weekend. Refuses, not interested, for whatever reason. The issues may also be conflict with mother, okay, whatever the case. But it gap you fully that you can spend time with a child. Nope, not interested. Or sometimes they insist that you do my test. If not, yeke. And of the child is there because there are hardline negotiators as ngabazali. Sometimes the person is the mother wants umntana to have a relationship with the father, and the father just has other things. So it is but the father is just that's it. There's no other thing, another way of explaining it. I remember talking to a young guy young person was hurt by the absence katatake woman back. Do you think, baby, is it possible by No, that can't be it. Because une girlfriend in the same university I go to, and we parallelly flat. Now, that has got nothing. There's no other real reason. The guy just has made a choice not to be involved in Bomdanak. So sometimes we have absent fathers, and they come in different stripes. It is sometimes Lendioba to absent father is not a justifiable label, because if you're not aware in Bunomdana, it's not justifiable to call you an absent father. If you are an absent father because of a conflict, you're not justifiably an absent father. One opportunity to do so, to be a father, but you're because we first need to tell your wife. Cowardice when they call an absent father because well, they're justified in calling you that. If you're an absent father because you are well, that's part of cowardice. Go, let my back to go, but let at least your child know you've made the attempt to be there in their life. And if it's just because you're irresponsible or namdla, then they can justifiably call you an absent father. So we do have as well absent fathers, and I'm hoping that as we listen here, none of us is an absent father. And if you are an absent father, child's life, ubanga bakwayi disclose kumkakho, tell her, have that fight, have that big blowout, but tell her, ubugwala bakho should not deprive umntana of a father. Tell your wife you have this child. Of course, well, say that, man. Well, I'm not sure you'll get away with that, but find a way to use it, find a way to use it. And of course, it's not easy. It's going to be a big blowout, and it could start out as an all-out war. But the way to being a father to umntana you have not fathered so far that exists is for you to disclose it. Discipline. Of course, discipline. What do you think this is? We are going to discipline you, but then it will pass, and then you are able to be a father for the rest of your life and the rest of your child's life. So do not so fear church discipline that you become an absent father. I've got 2 children. Disclosure because so please let's choose not to be absent fathers. Let's choose not to be absent fathers and be present in the life.